fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration, the Friday edition. Just got finished interviewing Mr. Noble, David Noble, and went about 3 hours. That's part one. Got about halfway through the questions, and we had agreed that we were only going to do a 3-hour episode, and then he's going to come back. Very good episode. Very good time with him answering questions. Very sharp individual. I had to give it to him. Some very interesting answers to questions. I think y'all enjoy it. But I'm going to get right to it since it's so long. Part one of Mr. David Noble. And then we will get together again later and have the part two. And hopefully that'll be it. But had a lot of questions come in. A lot of them are redundant, so I skipped a lot. So if you're waiting for yours, if he had already answered the question, I did not answer and ask it again, okay? And so some very interesting answers, especially about the 2026 election. And so I think y'all are going to enjoy it. Now this gentleman, he tells his age, so I'm not telling anything, but he's 78 years old and sat on here for 3 hours and answered questions, and he's going to come back and do it again. So I give the man his props for that. So here it is, part one, my questions from y'all to Mr. David Noble. And that'll be it. Once it's over with, I won't be back on the other side. We will get back with him, and we'll have part two, and that'll be the next thing we do, all right? So y'all take care of yourselves. Here's part one, David Noble. Hope you enjoy it. All right. We're here with Mr. David Noble. He is running for president of the NALC coming up, and he requested to be on here to answer y'all's questions. And we've got about 2 weeks worth of questions. And so him and I have agreed if it goes longer than 3 hours, we're going to cut it off and pick it back up on another day. That way every question can be answered. He has no idea what these questions are. I've not sent him these questions. To my knowledge, he's not looked up any of the questions on any other platforms. So it's going to be a fun little 3 hours here, having him answer questions. So, Mr. Noble, you with me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I don't know that much about you, my friend. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. And when you finish, well, we're going to get cracking, all right?
Yes, sir.
It's all yours.
As Corey said, my name is David Noble. That's my name on Facebook. You can find me there every day. You can also find me in the Facebook group, Clean Sweep 2024. My email address is dwnoble@gmail.com. I was hired as a letter carrier in 1975, 49 years ago. My last job had been working in a linseed oil factory, represented by steelworkers, and I had been a steward. On my first day as a letter carrier, I found that the steward in my station had quit and nobody had stepped forward. I called the branch president, Bob Tripanier, and volunteered for the job. He appointed me on the spot and asked me to come over to the branch office after work. I met with Tripanier after work that first day, and we talked for a while about the Postal Service. It turned out that we both had a great deal of hostility toward management. Tripanier was a real fighter. He liked to mix it up. He liked to call them names. He liked to make them unhappy. That pleased me. Tripanier was a member of a group that was called the Rank and File that was trying to make reforms in the NALC. He had a friend, the president of Branch 36 in New York, Vince Sombrotto, who was also a member of the rank and file. After Tripanier and I talked on that first night about the post office in Minneapolis, he called Sombrotto on the phone and put me on to talk to him. That began a custom of Sombrotto and I talking on the phone every week for the next 3 years. Sombrotto ran for president in 1976, and he had run twice before that. And each of those 3 times he lost. Sombrotto sometimes joked when we talked on the phone that he could teach me street smarts and I could teach him book smarts. In 1978, on his 4th try to run for NALC president, Sombrotto won. In NALC's 135-year history, that was the only time an incumbent president was ousted by a challenger. It had never happened before, and it's never happened since. When he became president, Sombrotto appointed me to work in the Minneapolis regional office, where I handled grievances at the 3rd step and an arbitration for a 4-state region. 2 years after that, Sombrotto summoned me to work with him at headquarters in Washington, D.C. While there, I was NALC's Step 4 representative. Over my career as a steward, as a regional representative, and as a national representative, I've handled over 10,000 grievances at all steps of the grievance procedure. When I joined the union, it was a bad union in 1975. The president, Jim Rademacher, arbitrated no contract grievances. When he was succeeded by Joe Vaca, Vaca arbitrated no contract grievances, which meant that when I ended up in the Minneapolis region and 2 years later at headquarters, we had an 8-year backlog of contract grievances to clean up. Many of those grievances were made to go away by settling them before we went to arbitration. But we also undertook to arbitrate many more grievances than had been allowed during the Rademacher and Vaca years. When I got to headquarters, the first thing I did was call management and tell them that we wanted to double the number of arbitrators on the regional panels. A couple of months after that, I called them up and told them that we needed to double the number of arbitrators again. Within a short time, we were arbitrating 2,000 grievances a year. And that compares with the 600 or so that are being arbitrated now under Brian Renfro. I was a central participant in 4 national negotiations. During those negotiations, I wrote 98% of NALC's proposals. I wrote background papers and talking points for the proposals. During negotiation sessions, I sat between Sombrotto and NALC's chief lawyer, Bruce Simon, so I could lean forward and whisper into both of their ears. I personally negotiated penalty overtime and the letter carrier paragraph that requires management to seek to provide auxiliary assistance before requiring a non-OTDL carrier to work overtime on his own route. Also, while at headquarters, I created NALC's computer arbitration system, which Corey must be familiar with. I also created the materials reference system, also called MRS, and wrote defenses to discipline. And all 3 of those things, the computer arbitration system, MRS, and defenses to discipline, are still being published and used by NALC 35 years after I created them. And I guess that's enough for a background. So I'm ready for questions if you are, Corey.
Yes, sir. All right. We're going to get right to it. Some of these questions are going to be redundant. I'm going to read every question. If you've already answered it, we'll just skip it. All right. Because I've got a bunch of questions that ask the same thing. They're just kind of worded differently. So to cut out on some time, we'll just ask it. If you've already answered it, we'll just keep on going. Okay.
Sure.
All right. When is the last time? I'm going off of my phone first. These were sent to me onto my phone, and then we'll get on to Discord, Reddit, and then Facebook. All right. When is the last time you delivered mail?
2012, which means that I've delivered mail more recently than Brian Renfro or any present national officer.
All right. When was the last time you filed a grievance?
Uh, 2012 was probably the last time I filed a grievance on my own behalf. I've been helping people with grievances for the last 12 years.
Okay. When was the last time you met at an informal A meeting?
There's 40 years.
40?
Yeah, it was when I was still working in Minneapolis.
Okay. I may have missed it. How long were you at National?
For 13 years.
Okay. You probably said that. I missed it, and I apologize. All right. And so 40 years at the informal. When was the last time you met at the formal step A?
Again, that would have been back when I was working at the branch level in Minneapolis 40 years ago.
Okay. How many arbitrations have you done?
About 35.
35. When was the last time you was in arbitration? I'm not going to hold you to that number because, like I said, these are straight off. I know you haven't looked at any of these questions, so if you don't remember, you don't remember. That's fine. So, when was the last time you did an arbitration? Do you remember?
Well, by doing an arbitration, if you mean being the advocate,
Yes, sir.
that was in when I was working in the Minneapolis regional office 40 years ago.
Okay.
During the 13 years I was at headquarters, I was the assistant to the president for arbitration, and I was generally the witness through whom NALC presented its case in national arbitration.
I got you. This question you do not have to answer. What is your age?
I'm essentially the same age as Donald Trump. He turns he turned 78 in 2 weeks.
Okay.
I turned 78 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
I would like to add to that, however,
Well, you're putting
that
yourself out there saying, you know, same age as him. He's under fire right now.
yeah, I would like to add to that, however,
Yeah.
that my father was a professor of history at the University of Minnesota, and he kept teaching until he was 84. And although he stopped teaching at 84, he continued to write. And when he died at 92, he was working on his 12th book. His mind was still there when he died at 92. And my mind is still here at 78. And being a union officer is primarily a mental exercise. It has to do basically without thinking management. And I do that as well or better now than I ever did.
All right. So you got good genes, is what you're saying.
I'm lucky.
All right. All right. Uh, which officer positions have you had within your branch in the last 20 years?
None.
Well, you probably already answered this one. What do you think of the current MRF and do you use it?
Yes, I use I use MRS at least weekly when I'm helping out carriers who are having problems.
Okay. And you stated that you were initially the one who wrote the MRS or came up with it?
I was the one who created MRS. Yes.
Okay. What issues do you see with the current contract that are not economical?
Oh, there are all kinds. There shouldn't be CCAs. That's not economic. There should be an article in the contract that specifies letter carrier rights, and that article of the contract should, for example, prohibit supervisors from criticizing letter carriers on the workroom floor, and it should prohibit supervisors from criticizing letter carriers behind closed doors unless they have a positive suggestion to make for how the carrier could improve. Simply saying to the carrier, you're not working hard enough or you're not working fast enough shouldn't be permitted.
Right. All right. Well, I'm gonna piggyback on that. We already have things in place such as 115.4, the M39 handbook, mutual respect, the joint statement. You have postal policy and workplace harassment. What would you do different than that then, since we already have language that kind of protects carriers from that, yet management doesn't really care?
Yeah, the joint statements on violence in the workplace were negotiated when I was at headquarters, and I played some small part in formulating the language that would be used. The problem with the joint statements and 115 of the M39. Excuse me for a second. The problem with those is that they're too general. They need to be filled out by the new article I proposed for the contract, the letter carrier rights article, with specific prohibitions of management activity. I lost one of my best friends in the union to a removal about 10 years ago. He was represented by someone from Region 8. I think his name was Valdorsky. Does that ring a bell?
Bedorsky? Yeah.
Yeah. This carrier had asked to be permitted to get off on time because he had to pick up a child at that time. And during the day, he was approached by a supervisor and told that he couldn't get off on time and unless he worked fast and delivered a pivot in addition to his own route. And this degenerated into a shouting match in which three supervisors were standing on the workroom floor shouting at this carrier about how he needed to work faster. And he ended up getting fired and successfully fired. I don't think that he should have been. I think that a letter carrier rights article would have prevented that kind of scene from forming, where you have three supervisors on one carrier.
I know Vodorsky well. When I first started as an advocate, he was one of the ones who helped me coming up. He was very good. All right. Now you sent me several things. They're going to be up on this episode. This question kind of coincides with that. What are you trying to seek with your current lawsuit against the NALC? You just won an appellate court ruling that appears to require the union to sell you space in the postal record at any time. So that's a question.
Okay, that's right. I do have a lawsuit. I did win a decision on Monday this week, saying that the union has to allow candidates to place ads in the postal record in issues other than the single issue before the election every 4 years. One of the reasons that we've only had one person break in and oust an incumbent president in 135 years is that the national officers have a near monopoly on communicating with the membership. They appear in the postal record every month. Every resident national officer has a column that is a page or more. The national officers, including the 15 business agents and the resident officers, are welcome to go into any post office at any time and address the carriers either as a group or individually. No challenger can do that. The resident national officers, who are all wealthy because they draw huge salaries from NALC, by pooling their funds, can make a mailing to the membership during elections every 4 years. That costs about $1 million. Placing a single page ad in the postal record costs only $2,700. So if challengers in the future are going to be able to address the whole membership. Ads in the postal record are the only way they're going to be able to do that. No challenger has ever been able to put together the money necessary to make a nationwide mailing. And by our victory on Monday of this week, we've taken a step toward making NALC more democratic, and I hope at some point in the future allowing someone other than Vince Sombrotto to oust an incumbent president. There seems to be a building consensus that Renfro needs to go. Whether that's because I defeat him or someone else defeat him doesn't matter. He needs to be ousted.
We agree on that. All right, so here's a two-part question. Are you going to run for president for sure in 2026? Are there any circumstances where you would decide against it?
Yeah, I'm leaning against running in 2026. I hope I don't have to. I would be prevented from having to if another candidate appeared who advanced substantially the same platform I have, which is one, that we need large wage increases for letter carriers. Two, we need to make the grievance procedure function again by getting rid of the backlogs at step B and in arbitration. And three, we need to run clean elections because the election committees that have been appointed by the national officers for the last three elections have run increasingly dirty elections each time. Twice they've had me arrested as I tried to observe the counting of the ballots. The last election, the one in 2022, they made completely opaque, where while elections are supposed to be completely transparent. I'm pretty confident that the last election was so bad that we're going to get a rerun election in 2024 or perhaps early 2025. And the candidates in that election will be the same candidates who were on the ballot in 2022, which means I would be running again in the rerun. But again, I hope not to be running again in 2026.
All right. Do you have a current slate of candidates at this time?
Yeah, if there is a rerun of the 2022 election, the same people who ran on the clean sweep slate, and there were 8 of them, will be running again in the rerun election.
Yes, sir. When is the last time you were at NALC headquarters? Did I lose you?
No, I'm trying to think.
Okay, I'm sorry. It got quiet.
I have been there in the last 30 years, but only 1 or 2 times. There is a guard at the doorway of the NALC building who has my picture and the instructions not to permit me into the building under any circumstances. The 1 or 2 times that I've been there in the last 30 years, people have come down from upstairs to deal with me rather than allowing me upstairs.
All right. Do you have a good relationship with any current officers of the union?
Um, I have cordial um, professional relationships with several, um, and including Nicole Ryan, with of whom I make requests fairly frequently, and she tries to respond to them.
Yeah, she's Nicole's an all-star, that's for sure. Now this one's an interesting one. How would you have handled the November 2011 negotiations after the APWU agreed to PSEs?
I'm not sure what the I'm not sure what facts are being assumed by that question.
Okay.
Um,
Me neither.
APWU agreed to PSEs in separate negotiations with postal management a couple of years before the DOS arbitration took place. I think that what Cliff Guffey did in that negotiation by agreeing to create PSCs and by agreeing to create a second tier were both betrayals of the APW membership, and I think that they deserved to lose in the next election, and indeed 11 of 13 APWU national officers were defeated in the next election. That formed the context for what happened in the DOS arbitration in 2013, which was entirely phony. It was an arbitration in which no live testimony was taken. Everything that was submitted was submitted in writing. In writing, in his written testimony, Fred Rolando, who was then the president of the NALC, proposed what Cliff Guffey had proposed in the APW negotiations a couple of years earlier. That is, he proposed the creation of a huge non-career, underpaid, underbenefited workforce to be called CCAs, and he agreed to an about $12,000 cut in starting pay for letter carriers, which is what created Table 2 of the NALC pay chart. While Rolando proposed those to the arbitration panel, after the panel adopted his proposals in the DOS award issued in 2013, Rolando and his right-hand man, Brian Renfro, said that NALC had opposed creating CCAs and had opposed the $12,000 pay cut, whereas in fact Rolando had not opposed those; he had proposed those. And I asked Corey to place as an episode site to this episode Rolando's written testimony to the DOS panel in which he proposes CCAs and proposes the $12,000 pay cut, provided that the second table end at the same place table one ends.
This is your episode. Everything you sent me should be up when you look at from8arbitration.com. Jeremy's supposed to put everything you sent me up on that episode. If you look on there and there's something not on it, you let me know and I'll make sure it gets up there. All right.
Cool.
All right. What happened between you and Sombrotto?
Sombrotto and I worked together fruitfully for both of us for 18 years. After 18 years, an issue arose between us that we were unable to resolve. And that was my discovery that NALC's national officers were making 3 under-the-table payments to themselves. I thought that it was improper for NALC's officers to make under-the-table payments. I thought that what NALC's officers got by way of pay and by way of benefits were established by the membership through the Constitution, and that they ought not and were not allowed to, under the Constitution, to make payments to themselves that were not provided for by the Constitution. And I thought those payments were improper. Vince didn't, and we couldn't resolve that. So I told the membership about the previously secret payments to the officers, and Vince suspended me without giving me a reason. He suspended me without pay, but with benefits. Another of the documents that I asked Corey to put up as an episode site is a National Labor Relations Board decision finding that the reason that Sombrotto suspended me was because I had revealed the secret payments to the membership.
All right. What year did you retire from the Postal Service?
2012.
All right, here's another. Congrats on the recent court ruling in your favor. Do you honestly think now, with this ruling on your side, the DOL will supervise a rerun of the 2022 election? If so, how long do you think it will be before this happens?
Well, I don't think that that the court ruling that we won this week will have much effect on the possibility of a rerun. I think that the two major issues that will cause a rerun is first, the union failed to verify any of the ballots that were returned by the membership or by anybody else. The union uses a 2-envelope system, which is required by the Department of Labor. In the upper left-hand corner of the outside envelope, there's a place for the person voting to identify themselves, and below that, a line for the person to identify the branch to which they belong. And the election committee didn't even look at that information, whether it was there or not. They didn't care. They just went ahead and accepted all of the votes. And I think that that's improper under the law, and I would expect that to cause a rerun election. The second issue, which is even more important, is that on every ballot, the election committee included a 6-digit number, and it turns out that that number identified the individual voter who was casting the ballot, which means that the election committee now has a record of exactly how every member who voted, how they voted in 2022. Among other things, that information would allow them to send ballots to people who voted for the incumbents and to hold back ballots from people who voted against the incumbents. And I do not expect that to be tolerated. And I think that will cause a rerun election. And I would expect the rerun election to occur either late in 2024 or early in 2025.
All right. Now, this is the same person. This is the second part. Also, with the new CLC movement going on just as it did back when you were with Sombrotto, and most letter carriers loving what they've heard so far about the new ticket, if asked, would you be willing to join forces with the CLC ticket in any capacity to get the NALC back to being feared, or is it just national president or bust for you?
No, it's not national president or bust for me. What's important is that we get back, that we take back the presently dysfunctional and corrupt NALC and turn it back into a fully functioning, fighting force NALC. And I think that given the 135-year history where only one person has succeeded in ousting an incumbent president, that it's essential that all people who oppose the present administration join together and support each other's efforts to rid NALC of the people who are making NALC dysfunctional and corrupt, and return it to being an effective fighting union.
All right. You may have answered this kind of. What will you do to make management accountable for falsifying, stealing, physically and verbally abusing carriers, and overall breaking the contract so they will be held accountable and disciplined as we are?
Well, I mean, the first thing that we need is a functioning grievance procedure. My goal would be to have an arbitration, an arbitrator waiting to hear a denied grievance from step 3 or step B within 2 weeks after the case has been impassed at that step. If there were that kind of schedule, availability of arbitration, it would help a lot in terms of accountability, getting rid of the backlog and arbitrating a couple of thousand grievances a year as we did during the Sombrotto administration would do a lot toward accountability. It particularly bothers me when supervisors perform dishonest acts, when they falsify documents. One of the friends that I've lost to postal management had 28 and a half years in with a perfectly clean record. He took a photograph of on his phone of a scan point. This was back when we were still scanning several points on the street each day. And he scanned his phone once to show that he was at a scan point when in fact he was visiting with another carrier. And for that, he lost 28 years of a job, of a career, which I think is shameful. I think that supervisors have to be held to the same standard that they try to hold letter carriers to about honesty, and that when they do things that are dishonest, they should be gone.
All right. What will you do to spread knowledge throughout all city carriers in every office so they have the knowledge they need to combat management?
Well, I'm interested in spreading knowledge, as is Corey. Uh, the things I did, some of the things I did while I worked at headquarters, were to get information out to working letter carriers, to carriers in the stations. That's why I created MRS. That's why I wrote Defenses to Discipline. And that's why I created the computer arbitration system. And when I created the computer arbitration system, it was originally available to any letter carrier anywhere. That's no longer the case. I want to restore the availability of arbitration decisions to everybody as they were during the Sombrotto administration. Excuse me. I also would like to have more rigorous training available at the regional and branch level. I think that when the region puts on RAP sessions or training sessions, that the national union ought to be paying carriers and all attendees for lost time. The NLC has a lot of money, and I would much rather that we're paying money for people to attend training sessions than to pay obscenely high salaries to the national resident officers.
How will you force management to honor the contract and not constantly re-break it like breathing?
Well, I mean, when management keeps violating the contract after having made settlements, when they're not honoring settlements that they've made, that's shows bad faith on management's part, and bad faith in bargaining, whether contract negotiations or grievance negotiations and grievance settlements are redressable through charges to the National Labor Relations Board or through court action. And I would avail myself of those other avenues, the NLRB and court, to bring management to heel. The constant violations of the contract have to stop.
All right. Now here we're starting with Discord. Those are all the ones that were sent to me personally. Here's Discord. What can be done about how badly we're getting murdered in territory disputes with rural and subcontracting issues?
Well, they're given what the contract says, there shouldn't be any subcontracting issues at all. Um, there is no good reason for there to be two unions representing rural letter carriers on one hand and city letter carriers on the other hand. Um, that's a situation that cries out for merger of the two unions. And I would I would encourage a merger of the two unions by buying off the rural carrier officers, uh, paying them to become NALC staff for a few years while the two unions merge.
All right, I want to touch on that a little bit. So you think that the NELC and the Rural Carriers Union should merge as one union?
Yes.
My father was a rural carrier back in he retired in the early 90s. And he said the same thing. He said that he was a rural carrier. He was begging the Rural Carrier Union to be taken over by the NELC. Of course, they wouldn't do it, but that's interesting to hear you say that.
Smart man, smart son.
Yeah. Well, smart man. I don't know about the second part. But Dave, if you were the current president and you had the task of making a new pay table, what would your pay table look like?
Well, if I were sitting in the situation that Brian Renfro is now, um, starting a national arbitration, the first thing I would do is I would put before the arbitrator uh, the fraud that was perpetrated on the membership in the DOS proceedings in 2013 when they created the CCAs and Table 2. And I would ask the arbitrator to um, rectify that fraud by undoing what was done by the DOS award in 2013. Um, that would result in about an average $6 an hour pay increase for um, all letter carriers who are in Table 2 now. And it would also get rid of the CCA classification, and CCAs would all become career letter carriers. Beyond that, I think that our natural comparator in bargaining is UPS, and the law under which the Postal Service operates requires that letter carrier pay be comparable to pay that's paid in the private sector. And I would ask the arbitrator um, to provide for us the way UPS has provided for its delivery personnel. That is to have letter carriers top out at $98,000 or $99,000 a year. That the employer pay 100% of health benefits, and that the top end be reached in 4 years rather than the more than 13 years as provided by the current pay scale.
All right, here's a good one. How are you going to differ in your strategy of dealing with the Postal Service compared to the current leadership?
Well, I mean, the present leadership and Renfro and Rolando were really joined at the hip. So this goes back for a couple of years. The present leadership rolls over for management and does whatever management wants. They try to disguise it a little bit, although not very much. I think, and Vince Sombrotto thought, and this was very important to him, that management and the union are equals, and that any toes being stepped on by management have to draw a harsh rebuke from the union. It's not to be tolerated at all. I would not be in the slightest interested in talking with Doug Tolino, whose father was an NALC business agent, by the way. Doug, I would not be interested in talking with Doug Tolino about how bad the Postal Service's financial situation is. One of the things I would like to do about NALC at headquarters is to upgrade our research capability. Right now, we only have one person in research. I'd like to probably quintuple that, and I would like to task the research with creating with the IT department a computer model of the Postal Service's finances, so that we can know exactly what's going on with the Postal Service financially, rather than having to take their word for it, which is what Renfrew does, and to be able to gauge exactly what effect our pay proposals would have on the Postal Service's financial situation. Right now, we only take their word for it.
Right. Do you support open bargaining, as in letting the carriers know what is being asked for by both management and the NALC?
Of course. And during the 13 years I was a member of the Sombrotto administration, our bargaining was completely open. Vince recorded an update on what had happened in bargaining after every bargaining day, and put it on a phone that could be reached toll free by any member, and that phone was ringing all the time. It doesn't make sense for them to be bargaining in secret. There's nothing to be gained by bargaining in secret.
I agree. You kind of answered this one already. How do you feel about the CCA position and how CCAs are treated? Is it a necessary evil we truly can't live without, or do you believe there's opportunities to bump CCAs up to PTF, improve the CCA position for the purposes of retention and job satisfaction?
We shouldn't have CCAs. It was an enormous betrayal of the 100,000 or so people who have had to serve terms as CCAs since Rolando proposed the creation of the CCA classification in 2013. When Rolando proposed the creation of the CCA classification, and again, you can look at Rolando's written testimony to the DOS panel as an episode cite. When Rolando made that proposal, he noted that the law requires the Postal Service to place particular emphasis upon creating career employment for employees. The very first day of a clean sweep administration, we would be in federal court asking a federal court to do away with the CCA classification and for the court to order the Postal Service to convert all CCAs to career positions immediately.
All right. What is your stance on the cease and desist? Do you believe that is a vital part of contract enforcement? Do you believe the NALC should publicly reiterate its importance?
Yes, I think it's very important that if we make settlements that that the settlement include the Postal Service's agreement to cease and desist, and if they violate that, I don't think that simply shooting for escalating remedies is enough. I think that we ought to be in before the NLRB or in court charging them with bad faith bargaining.
All right. Here's a trap. Why didn't you come on the podcast in 2022?
Actually, in 2022, I didn't know what a podcast was, and I had never listened to a podcast, and I had learned in school and that people will listen to a message for about 3 minutes and no longer. And Corey has proven what I learned in school to be wrong. I don't have a gift for self-promotion. If I did, I would have been looking at podcasts in 2022.
All right. Would you support having rallies informing the public about how city letter carriers are treated on the workroom floor?
Absolutely. Not only would I support it, I've participated in them on many occasions. I think that it's one of the best ways of putting heat on management. When we were having problems with management at Friendship Station, we threatened to hold a rally. I was going to be the spokesperson, and management melted. It's an important tactic and one that we should be using more often.
All right. Why don't negotiations for contracts start earlier? Most of the time they go to arbitration anyway. I get the back pay will come, but that money from the raises could have been invested or even collecting interest if we could have gotten it sooner.
Well, I don't know what goes on in negotiations now. But in the 4 negotiations I was involved in during the Sombrotto administration, 90 days was plenty for us to figure out whether we were going to be able to agree, or whether there were issues that were going to separate us unless a third party was brought in. 90 days is the time that's provided by the contract for negotiations, and it's also provided by statute. And I don't see any reason to change it. Most of what happened during those 90 days when I was involved with negotiations during the Sombrotto administration, negotiating time was used figuring out what it was exactly that the other side wanted and what we needed. And it doesn't take a lot of time to figure out, when management gives you a pay proposal, that's not enough. That's not going to cut it. When that happens, you just say no, and either they come back with something better or you go to arbitration.
What is your plan for the route adjustments now that TIREAP or TRAP will not be renewed?
I think it's generally a bad idea for the union to be involved in any sort of joint process to adjust routes. Um, I have never been as mad at the union as I was during Bill Young's administration when um, a route examiner read to me from a piece of paper that no adjustment was being made by my route, and this decision had been made jointly by your union and management, and you can't file a grievance about it. I think that the way to handle route examinations, bad route examinations, bad results of route examinations is through the grievance procedure. Um, the leading case of that is still a case that a regional case that Steve Holt had back in 1986 when the arbitrator didn't even require us to show what management had done wrong. All we needed to show was that nobody's route was adjusted to 8 hours, and the arbitrator ordered management to adjust all the routes to 8 hours forthwith. And I think that's the right way to approach it.
All right. Now here's some things. We're going to get into some things you've already answered, and we'll just agree that you've already answered some of these. What in the JCAM needs to be revised?
Well, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, and we could spend the rest of the podcast going through the JCAM page by page, pointing things out. A couple of things that jump out to me are the JCAM doesn't say clearly and straightforwardly that carriers who are not on the overtime desired list may not be required to work over 10 hours. The 10 hours is an absolute limit, and that's it. Second, there's a very long-winded. I'm sure that it was written by Bill Young himself. Explanation of what it means that when management fails to timely issue a decision, the grievance is deemed to be moved to the next step of the grievance arbitration procedure. The long-winded explanation that's in the JCAM says that what that means is that the union, when management doesn't issue a timely decision, has to appeal to the next step of the grievance arbitration procedure, and that's just stupid. Nobody does that, and we had to change it back to what it was before the JCAM came out, to what the plain language of the contract says, that the grievance procedure that we have now, except for step B, was written by Sylvester Garrett, who was the national arbitrator during the 70s, and who was a genius at labor relations, and the parties in 1978 asked for him to come up with a grievance procedure, and what he came up with was very good.
All right, you've already answered this one. What role did you play in the MERS? We agreed to that. Did you actually create differences to discipline? You've answered that. What's the truth about your falling out with Sombrotto? You've answered that. So let's keep going. If elected as executive president, how will you address the lack of compliance with previous grievance settlements at the local level? I think you've answered that. If elected as executive president, how will you address the lack of contract compliance across the nation by the USPS? You've answered that, right?
Yeah, I think so.
If elected as executive president, how will you address the usage of scanner data by management at the local level, both in general and in regards to discipline?
Yeah, scanning scanners have been shown not to be accurate. We shouldn't permit use of scanner data under any circumstances for disciplining a letter carrier for anything.
All right, I'm gonna get on top of that one. Our current president believes that we can be monitored by the scanner uh, with that data. Do you believe that? I believe that 134 of the M39 takes over that, where it says you can't spy or use covert techniques. What's your position on that? Do you believe that management should have the ability to monitor us daily with a scanner?
No, I'm with you, Corey.
All right. If elected as executive president, how would you address the large backlog of cases at the DRT?
The in my considerable experience getting rid of backlogs, the only way to get rid of backlogs is to add people. Where there are too many grievances clogging up the grievance procedure at step B, we need to get more step B teams working. That's the only way to get rid of it. To get rid of the arbitration backlog, we need to get more arbitrators. That's the only way to get rid of the backlog.
I agree. If elected as executive president, would you use your authority to pull the NALC out of any signed agreement with the USPS? If so, which agreements and why, if you know of any?
Yeah, I don't know of any that I would pull us out of.
If elected as executive president, how would you address the difference in pay between the NALC and USPS members of a variety of teams such as TRAP, the DRT, CORE, and any others? How would you implement those changes?
Yeah, I'm not sure what pay differences are being described there. I think that when letter carriers are performing letter carrier work, they should get letter carrier pay.
All right, I'll say for instance, the DRT, and I've talked about this before. The difference between the NELC member and the management members are vastly different. The NELC is on a no loss, no gain. They'll get a stipend of some couple of $1,000s, and they're sitting across the table from somebody from the service making several more thousand than them. Would you aim to correct that as president?
Well, my way of correcting that would be to get rid of DRT teams altogether. I think that the present step B, which was created by Bill Young to make step B be a cooperative effort at step B is wrong. I think that we should go back to what we had since 1978. Before then, have an adversarial step 3, as we have an adversarial step 2, step A, and formal step A and informal step A. They're all adversarial, and step B should be adversarial too. I think that the people who represent NALC at step B should go back to being regional level representatives, and best would be if they were directly elected by the membership. When grievance representatives are deciding how to settle a grievance, I want them to be thinking about what's best for the grievant not what the national president who appointed them wants them to settle it as.
Right, here's a good one. Would you support a proposal for executive council members to be required to work their designated routes at least 1 week annually as a means of experiencing the consequences of their actions at the national level?
Yeah, as a general principle, I think that would be a terrific idea. In actual practice, I'm afraid that they would just have their asses kissed by management for that week, and they wouldn't learn very much at all.
All right, here's a doozy. Will you stay out of the way so we can have someone who might garner real support run against Renfro instead of splitting the vote and potentially keeping the current clowns in power?
Well, again, I think I've answered that.
Yeah,
I'm not inclined to run in 2026. However, I think there's going to be a rerun election in 2024. And under the law, if there is a rerun, I will be on the ballot against Renfro. I hope that by 2026, someone else has appeared to pick up the baton and shoot for the same kinds of reforms that I've been shooting for the last 10 years.
right. Given the ongoing concerns with union leadership regarding transparency, communication, and adherence to our contract, how do you plan to ensure accountability in your own leadership compared to the current administration?
Well, I think that NALC the governance of NALC should be completely transparent, and that every member should be able to find out at any time what everybody is doing. The union exists to benefit the members. It doesn't exist to benefit the national officers, and it would build confidence in the union if we were completely open and transparent.
What mechanism can the membership utilize to hold you and the National Executive Board accountable for your actions?
Well, I mean, the only ways we have under the NALC Constitution to hold officers accountable are one, through the Article 10 charges, and two, through elections. I haven't come up with a better scheme than that.
You answered this one already. If you're in the executive board, would you have supported someone you knew had drinking, harassing women, etc. issues, which you have spoke up about this, or would you have spoke up about this before he was put on the national slate to run for president?
Yeah, I think that the NALC Executive Council is a bad place for someone with serious alcohol dependency problems to dry out. I think that as soon as it became known that Renfro was heavily dependent on alcohol, that members of the council should have taken action.
All right. As someone who no longer is employed by the Postal Service and has not been for a long time, what do you think makes you equipped to represent the membership and the current issues we face?
Well, yeah, NALC has been my cause for 49 years. And I've been deeply involved with it for that whole time, in a variety of capacities. I think that I have a clear understanding of what's going wrong with NALC at present, and what actions need to be taken to right the ship and get us steaming full speed ahead again.
All right, here's a tough one. I voted for you. I wanted something different. However, your reputation seems tainted based on what I've read on Discord and Reddit. I'm certain this caused you to lose the presidency. Most say you spew off a bunch of promises with no explanation of how you'd achieve them. I had never even heard your name prior to the last election, but I do agree with Corey in that if you love the city letter carrier, I'd support you. I'm not exactly sure who is supposed to run against our current president, but I'd want a passionate ticket that puts us first, but doesn't make decisions in the heat of passion. Be fired up to correct things, but use a level head when negotiating. I think most members here feel like you'd be the proverbial bull in a china shop if you were the president. How do you change this majority feeling about you?
Well, I think that by increasing the amount of exposure I have to the membership, I really need more information from you about what you think is being said negatively about me that caused me to lose the election. I think that I lost the election because I didn't have nearly as much access to the membership as the incumbent officers do through mailings, through the postal record, and through personal meetings with the membership while they're on assignment.
All right, Mr. Noble.
Just
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
just let me add to that before the 2022 election, I did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and Renfro did an Ask Me Anything the next night. And after we had each done an Ask Me Anything, Reddit did a straw poll, and I won the straw poll over Renfro, which showed to me that when my ideas get equal billing with Renfro's, that my ideas are more attractive than his.
All right. Mr. Noble, excluding yourself or your clean sweep team, who in the NELC would you or do you support as a good candidate for a national leadership position in the next election?
Well, I certainly will support Corey for national business agent in Region 8, which is a national position. I hope that somebody else appears who's running for national president in 2026, who is close to my platform, so that I will be able to support her or him.
All right, this kind of answered that. If you were not to run, who would you be behind for president? You just answered that. Are there any leaders in the NLC that you respect, admire, and would you be willing to offer your experiences and knowledge to their campaigns?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that, please?
Yes. Are there any leaders in the NELC that you respect, admire, and would you be willing to offer your experiences and knowledge to their campaigns?
Well, I respect Corey. I respect Nicole Ryan, although we may have some differences. I respect the Mr. Jackson, who preferred charges against Renfro. I respect the vice president, James. What's his last name, Corey?
James Henry.
James Henry.
Yeah. Are you open to accepting a different role on another slate under someone else?
Yeah, I don't see myself being on another slate. I would like an opportunity to be an arbitration advocate again, and if a different slate takes over in 2026, I hope they'd give me an opportunity to finish off my career with some regional arbitration work.
I do too. All right, you've now I'm going straight down Discord. So, folks, if y'all been waiting on your question, if it's already been answered, I'm gonna skip it. So don't get upset. Because this one here has already been answered about TRAP and GPS data, section 134 of the M39, complying with grievance settlements. You kind of touched on this, but I'm interested in this one here. How would you handle falsification by management, including but not limited to the HIP training, the heat illness training I talked a lot about, and falsifying punches to get 1 hour office times or hiding parcel deliveries under false time codes and tax?
No, I think that the supervisors who falsify things should be fired.
I agree. You've answered that. All right. David, you're an NALC headquarters staffer for many years. In 1993, you filed a series of charges against the entire executive council and President Vincent Sombrotto. In one of the charges, you alleged that the officers had authorized themselves FICA, Social Security reimbursement, improperly. During this time frame, and since 1981, you had received these reimbursed FICA payments as well. Did you ever attempt to return that money to the treasurer of the NEOC? And if you did, do you have any proof of that?
Well, I mean, my question is, what proof do you have that I received those reimbursements? Because that's false. I didn't.
All right, it's quick and easy. What is your position on DeJoy's 10-year plan, specifically with consolidation and the disruption to letter carriers by extended commutes?
Yeah, I think that DeJoy's 10-year plan is crackpot. I think that it's nuts to be doing away with neighborhood stations and adding 30 minutes or so travel time to letter carriers. I think that's just crazy. I think that we need to be opposing it with all we've got. Instead, Renfro is supporting DeJoy and holding him up.
Okay, what would be your main criticism of Renfro during contract negotiations, aside from him not being present? How would you have handled it differently?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest beef with Renfro is that he was part of the fraudulent DOS award back in 2013 when he tried to persuade the membership that NALC had opposed the creation of CCAs and had opposed the $12,000 cut that led to the creation of Table 2. That seems to me to be a fundamental betrayal of his duty as a national officer of the union. And I think that he should have been removed from office, and that Rolando should have been removed from office for that betrayal. I think that it was a bigger deal than driving drunk after hours in an NALC vehicle.
Do you think management is slow playing negotiations on purpose?
I don't think that management is slow playing negotiations. I think that Renfro is slow playing negotiations. Renfro has to at the NALC convention in August face another challenge to remove him from his job. The membership is in a sour mood, and he doesn't want to make their mood worse by producing a crappy contract before the convention. And a crappy contract is what he's going to give us. I think that Renfro is the one who's slow playing it. I got a message yesterday from a carrier who said that he had seen Renfro at a union event the night before, and that Renfro said the reason the arbitration hasn't started is because there are 3 arbitrators whose schedules have to be accommodated, and they're having a hard time doing it. And that's just the purest BS. That just shows that Renfro is incapable of telling the truth. There are 3 arbitrators in antitrust arbitration. 2 of those arbitrators are partisan arbitrators. They're both attorneys. One works for the NALC, the other works for USPS, and their schedules don't have to be accommodated. They will show up whenever the neutral arbitrator is ready to begin. And the neutral arbitrator, history will show the neutral arbitrator was ready to begin last April. And he's allowing this to be put off just to accommodate Renfro's wishes to put it off.
All right, here's another hard hitter. David, in 1993, a special convention was held because of the charges you filed against the executive council. Well in excess of 2,000 members attended. A vote was held of the members present, and at most, on any charge, you received only 72 votes in support of your position, and on one charge, only 5. How do you explain this?
Well, I mean, the first explanation is that I was not given an opportunity to put my facts, my evidence before the special convention. A 5-member investigative committee had been appointed to determine the true facts, and that committee excluded me from its investigative activities. They produced a report that was both inaccurate and incomplete. I am not certain that there were 2,000 members at that convention, because that has been the only convention at which NALC did not produce a convention proceedings record that shows the delegates who attended, or that provides a verbatim record of what was said at the special convention. The district court to which I appealed after the special convention ruled that I had shown sufficient evidence of bad faith on the part of the investigative committee and the part of the national officer who had been charged for him to deny summary judgment to NALC. And again, I've asked that Corey include as a episode cite the Judge Emmett Sullivan's denial of NALC's motion for summary judgment, in which he discusses some of my evidence of bad faith.
All right. Now hold me accountable on that. I sent those to Jeremy. Like I said, if there's something that you don't see, let me know. All right. This follow-up. After the members overwhelmingly voted to dismiss, why did you continue to pursue legal actions for over 20 years, costing the membership millions of dollars of dues money?
Well, there are a couple of points on that. One is that the membership didn't decide the interpretive question that was raised by my charges. As Corey will tell you, the first thing that happens at any hearing, whether it's arbitration or court or a convention convened to hear charges, the first thing that happens is you have to determine what the facts are. And only after you determine what the facts are can you move on to decide how the law or the contract or the NALC Constitution should be applied to those facts. The special convention was not presented with an issue of, okay, here's Noble's interpretation of the Constitution, and here's Sombrotto's interpretation of the Constitution. Instead, what the convention had was disciplinary charges against the officers, of which the convention was asked to decide essentially whether the officers were guilty or not guilty. And based on the record that was given to them by the investigative committee that had excluded me from its proceedings, based on that record, they voted that the charges were not founded. In essence, that the officers were not guilty. That didn't mean that they found that my interpretation of the Constitution was wrong. That meant that they ruled that I had not proven that the officers had done something that was improper. And indeed, using the investigative committee's inaccurate and incomplete report, I would have had to vote that way too, because they didn't provide enough information to permit the delegates to find the officers liable. The second thing about me costing NALC millions of dollars, when I filed suit in 1994 about the secret payments, I didn't sue NALC. I sued 12 individual officers, and the first thing those 12 individual officers did after I filed the suit was they filed a motion with the district court to have the court order me to join NALC as a defendant. I vigorously opposed that motion, saying that it was improper for a union to be a defendant in a suit against individual officers for their breach of fiduciary duty. And indeed, the NALC Constitution prohibits the national union from providing support to officers under those circumstances. Notwithstanding my vigorous opposition, the court granted their motion and ordered me to join NALC as a defendant. And from that moment on, from the moment that NALC joined the case, it undertook the complete defense of the individual officers that I had charged. They wrote all the briefs. At the trial, they called the witnesses. They cross-examined my witnesses. The lawyers for the individual defendants did nothing. 20 years after I had filed the suit, and after he had provided the individual defendants with the support of the union for 20 years, the judge, Emmett Sullivan, decided that he had been wrong to order me to add NALC as a defendant, and he dismissed NALC as a defendant as the last thing that he did in the suit. So it's not my fault that NALC spent money on that suit. It's the fault of the individual defendants. They led the court into error, and they benefited to the tune of several $1 million.
All right. Why didn't you ever run against Vince Sombrotto for president, but instead waited and only ran challenge candidates later, such as Rolando and Renfro?
I don't like union politics. It was only with the greatest reluctance that I jumped in and ran against Rolando in 2014 when nobody else would do so. And this was right after Rolando had betrayed the membership by proposing CCAs and Table 2. And I couldn't allow him to go on unchallenged.
All right. Management has recently been doing everything in their power to eliminate fixed office time. They have put accountables into the DPS. They have the 60-minute office time now, 22-minute load time. How would you handle this?
Yeah, I think that's again management stupidity, and we should be using the grievance procedure where we can to oppose it, and we should also be trying to bring legislative heat down on postal management at the headquarters level for the bad choices they're making about how letter carrier work is performed.
All right. We file grievances at the local level, but they get bogged down for months before we get decisions. Do you have a plan to expedite the grievance process? Justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that the grievance procedures time limits should be enforced in every case. And as I said, I think that we should have an arbitrator waiting 2 weeks after a grievance is impassed at step B to resolve it if it takes a third party to do that.
All right. I want to play advocate a little bit. You stated earlier that the backlog at the DRT, you would implement more DRT teams to try to do away with that backlog. You also said that you want to do away with the B team, with the DRT. So what would we do then, as far as if we're going to do away with the DRT, the B team? What would we do then with the backlog? Just would it go straight to arbitration, like you said? Make sure we had more arbitrations on panels so that they can hear these cases expeditiously, or what?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what should happen. You know, as well as I do, that arbitration is what drives the grievance procedure. When arbitration is available, grievances melt away. For every grievance we arbitrate, a number of grievances get settled because management is unwilling to arbitrate them. We have to increase access to arbitration.
I agree with that 100%. And I've said numerous times, we've got to get, when I'm business agent, we're getting back into arbitration. I think we've made a terrible misjudgment on that, as far as trying to save that money going in arbitration and pre-arbing these cases. I think that that's destroyed the grievance procedure. And so, not trying to take over your podcast here, but I think we've got to get back into arbitration like we used to. So I
I
agree with
mean,
you then.
making the grievance procedure work is one of the core functions of the union. Negotiating contracts is one, policing the collective bargaining agreement through the grievance procedure is two. Those have to be our priorities. Everything else is secondary.
If you were president, would you support educational podcasts like From Eight Arbitration or Classes of Mail and Fed Up? How would you utilize these immense resources differently from our current regime?
Well, I think that Corey has opened up a vast area that didn't exist before in terms of educating the membership. And I would encourage everybody to listen to Corey's podcast and to any other podcasts that offer comparable information.
I agree. All right, here's another heavy hitter. David, in 2011, you were removed from the U.S. Postal Service for charges of AWOL. You appealed these charges to MSPB, therefore bypassing the grievance process, which you claim to be an expert in, which you lost, and subsequently appealed the MSPB decision to the Federal Appeals Court, which you also lost. Given the recent most serious charges against President Renfro, who also appears to have been AWOL, can you explain these charges in some detail, and how can you assure us you won't do it again here while employed by NALC? Told you there's some heavy hitters in here.
During the 18 years that I continued to work as a letter carrier, after I was suspended from my NALC headquarters position, I was unable to use the grievance procedure for anything. I had negotiated the letter carrier paragraph which requires management to attempt to provide auxiliary assistance to carriers who are not on the overtime desired list. I was never on any overtime desired list. I was forced to work overtime every day for 18 years. There was no way that given my record with the grievance procedure, that I was going to put my job in the hands of grievance representatives who were hostile to me. So I went to the MSPB. It's true. I had gone AWOL, but I had gone AWOL to protest, and this was made known to management to protest their refusal to provide me with holiday pay. They shorted me on holiday pay every holiday. Every holiday I worked the last hour of the last day before the holiday and the first hour of the first day after the holiday. So I was eligible for holiday pay, but it's out of pure malice. They refused to process grievances on my behalf. I twice filed NLRB charges about their refusal to process my grievances, and in response to the first NLRB charges, the NLRB made them post a notice saying that they would cease and desist from denying me access to the grievance procedure. And the second time I filed NLRB charges, got a notice, a consent decree from the U.S. Circuit Court for the DC Circuit, saying the Postal Service would cease and desist from refusing to process my grievances. That didn't work either, and I filed an NLRB charge the third time, and then the Postal Service was in real trouble because they were in violation of a consent decree before the Circuit Court of Appeals. And for that third charge, the president of the local union, Local 142, withdrew my charge with the okay of the NLRB's regional director, who never explained to me why he allowed the president to withdraw my NLRB charge. Given that record, with trying to use the grievance procedure, I went to MSPB, and I lost, as do 98% of people who go to MSPB. Let me note that while Vince Sombrotto was serving as NALC president, the Postal Service fired him for violation of the Hatch Act, and he took his removal to the MSPB and lost. NALC's lawyers took that loss before the MSPB to the Federal Circuit and won. But I am not the only NALC headquarters type to have been fired by the Postal Service.
All right, here's one. David, what advice would you give to our brother, Mr. Jackson, who filed the charges against President Renfro? Having filed Article 10 charges yourself, should Brother Jackson expect to reap the whirlwind? What advice would you give him at this juncture should President Renfro manage to survive?
Yeah, I occasionally send emails to Mr. Jackson. One of the things that I have sent to him is the decision of the NLRB when I was retaliated against by Sombrotto, and I've encouraged him to avail himself of the NLRB should he find that he's being retaliated against by Renfro. And I have some indication through the grapevine that Mr. Jackson and Mr. Henry have both been retaliated against for the part they played in the charges against Renfro, and I hope that they won't simply suffer that silently.
All right. Would you consider Brother Jackson to be a martyr or a hero in this cause?
Oh, he's certainly a hero to me.
What advice would you give NALC staffers currently employed who have observed what has transpired during the Renfro era?
I wish that they would speak up as I did in 1993. I don't know of any who are planning on doing that.
Do you believe the membership will receive justice?
In the case of the Renfro charges?
Yeah, which I guess is already answered, being as the executive council voted not to do anything.
Well, except that that the issue of Renfro may be brought up again at the convention. Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen.
It will be interesting on that Friday, won't it?
It will, and if anyone were listening to my advice, I would advise them to try to get the charges moved up from being the last order of business on the last day of the convention, when delegates are streaming out of the hall. I think that it should be taken up on the first or third days of the convention.
I like that. Why do you feel that this time running would be any different than any of the others?
Well, if there is a rerun election, as I expect there to be in 6 to 8 months, it would not be run by the NALC election committee. It would be run by the Department of Labor, and it would therefore be a cleaner election than the last three have been. And the question I repeatedly ask people about elections is, if Renfro or Rolando could win a clean election against me, why did they run 3 very dirty elections?
Good question. All right. Do you not feel that with your age, health complications, and numerous failures to generate any kind of significant vote, the best thing to do would be to stand on the sidelines and offer your support to a ticket that would have a chance of winning?
Well, I think I've essentially said that that's the approach I would support in 2026. Yeah. If there's an election, a rerun election in 2024 or early 2025, the people are going to be the same people who ran in 2022, and there isn't any option there to stand aside. I'm going to have to stand up, and I'm going to have to do the best I can.
All right, this next one you answered already. David, can you explain to me what the duty of the NALC president is?
Well, the NALC president, unlike stewards or branch officers or regional representatives, isn't much involved in the day-to-day concerns of individual carriers about how they're being treated. Rather, the NALC president has to look at the systems that NALC is involved in namely the grievance procedure and the arbitration procedure, and decide whether they are functioning properly, and if they're not functioning properly, what steps need to be taken to make them function properly. The NALC president also has to decide, and under the NALC Constitution, NALC has a strong president and a weak executive council. During negotiations, the NALC president has to decide what proposals are going to be made to the Postal Service, and what proposals the Postal Service makes may be acceptable to us. And those are all macro views of NALC rather than micro views. They're looking at the whole union as an institution, rather than as problems that individual carriers are having.
All right. Can you and will you call things what they are? For instance, if someone falsifies documents, will you call it an inconvenience or call it what it is?
No, I think falsifying documents is criminal. I think that particularly supervisors who falsify documents should lose their jobs. Absolutely.
I know you have to keep things cordial and professional, but can you draw the line when needed on things like DeJoy, who is not an NALC member, going to the NALC Christmas party when NALC members at the lower levels can't even attend?
Yeah, I think that it's a big mistake it was a big mistake for Detroit to be at the Christmas party.
Would you promise the membership items that we would receive on our next contract prior to negotiating with the USPS?
Well, negotiations is a process involving human beings. And there aren't any certainties, and there can't be any promises about what the outcome can be. What I can promise is what I would pursue and how I would pursue it.
All right. How do you feel about a lot of new developments being assigned to rural routes? Entire cities are 100% serviced by rural routes. What would you do about that?
Yeah, again, I don't think there should be a rural union and a city union. And if we merged, that would take care of a lot of the friction that presently exists about who's getting the work. If city letter carriers were able to bid on what are now rural routes, I think that would be a good thing, and vice versa.
All right. I'm gonna say this one here is a shot at Renfro. All right, low hanging fruit, but I really am pissed. So here it goes. Are you an AA?
I am not an AA. No, I don't drink. Um, and I haven't for years. Back 50 years ago when I was in college, I imbibed a bit, but I don't anymore.
Right. And it says, if you are in AA, do you plan to abandon us at a critical time? So you're not in AA. If charges are brought against you, will you share a copy? They say we're a report, but we don't know who to be. Copy of the report with all union members.
I think that the charges procedure, as everything else about NALC governance, should be completely transparent. What is called the Weir report was prepared by a former business agent named Weir, and under the under the NALC Constitution, there are two investigative reports are potentially produced. The first is a report that allows the executive council to determine whether the charges are substantial. That is, whether they are supported by some evidence or whether they're just frivolous. And that's what the Weir report was prepared for the executive council to determine whether the charges were substantial. And that report was released way back late last summer or early fall. A copy of it didn't start circulating until March of this year. And when it circulated, at least the copy I saw, there was a buck slip on the top of the Weir report from Barry Weiner to two people who were on a committee with him, Brian Hellman and Ms. Warren. That report, the report of the Barry Weiner's three-person committee, is what the executive council used for deciding whether the charges against Renfro should be granted or dismissed. And we haven't seen the Weiner committee report. We've only seen the Weir committee report. The Weiner committee report is going to be much more interesting to us than the Weir report was, because it will have been treated with greater thoroughness and detail than the Weir report treated the issues. And second, because the Weiner committee was required by the NALC Constitution to make recommendations about the charges. And I for one, would like to know what recommendations they made, and whether the executive council followed those recommendations or disregarded those recommendations. Since the committee since the executive council has refused to release the Weiner report, I suspect that there is material in there that is harmful to Renfro, and I would like to see what it is.
Well, if I can get a copy of it, I'll read it. How's that sound?
Good.
Do you have anything to hide, like our current president?
I don't think so.
All right. Are you going to carry forth with an enough is enough campaign to distract from your failures and pretend like there isn't an elephant in the room? I think this guy is taking straight shots at Renfro. So will you be doing any kind of rallies to distract from any potential failures?
Gosh, I will be participating in rallies. I'm considering a rally at NALC headquarters soon. My son proposed that we do that. But I wouldn't be doing it to distract from any shortcomings. I would be doing it to attract attention to a problem which needs to have attention attracted to it.
Right. Now, I don't know if this is an inside joke or something, but David, have you ever been struck by lightning?
No.
Okay. Do you have any idea what that is? I don't
No,
know.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay. Now, here's one you've already answered, but there's some pretty good questions in here. Are you an advocate of the current dispute resolution process Or is it your stance to go back to the old process, eliminating the dispute resolution teams? And you've already said that that would be something that you'd be interested in doing, is doing away with the DRT, correct?
Correct.
All right. I don't know if you can answer this one. If DeJoy's plans are to have carrier start times at 7, why are they being moved to 9 or later?
That only Detroit can answer that. I think that Detroit is trying to destroy the Postal Service, and I think that we need to oppose his continued activity as the Postmaster General with everything we've got.
All right. Here's one of my favorite ones. If you win, what changes would you make to the NALC structure? And would you make Corey an MBA? Of course, you can't do that, but I do like that guy's enthusiasm there. So if you win, what changes would you make to the NALC structure? And would you make Corey an MBA? And you can tell them how that process works.
Well, okay. Assume there's a rerun election in late 2024, early 2025. I would appoint Corey, as the president has the authority to do, to be a regional administrative assistant in Region 8. And I would do everything I possibly could to encourage the incumbent NBA to relinquish that position and to vacate that post, so that I could then appoint Corey to be the NBA. I think in general that NALC has too many officers. NALC has 10 resident officers. The Teamsters, which is a much larger union than NALC is, only has 3 national officers. In my experience in working at NALC headquarters, and being part of Sombrotto's small inner circle, the people upon whom he relied most were staff and lawyers. Other officers really played no part.
All right. Are you willing to sign an agreement to not go into management or HR position for a period of 6 years after leaving a union position if you ever left the craft?
Sure, I'm never going into management. That's not, I've had many opportunities to do that. I'm not going over to the dark side.
All right. There's another one about city rule. You've answered that a bunch. Do you think using the media against the USPS is good or bad idea, and why?
I think it's a good idea because they respond. It's a kind of heat they hate to have, and it's exactly why Renfro is so closed-mouthed about everything that he does in negotiations and all his other interactions with management. Publicity creates heat, and management reacts. They respond when heat is placed on them.
Right. You may have answered this one. When was the last grievance you filed against a local supervisor? Do you remember what it was
No,
and when? Okay.
no.
David, what have you done to help the city letter carrier? And I believe you answered that beginning with the MERS and defenses to discipline stuff. I'm looking for any statistics, arbitration decisions, and/or positive changes to working conditions. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure I understand the statement. I want to arbitrate much more than we do. Right now, we're arbitrating about 600 cases a year. The way arbitration works, and I'm afraid to tell you the sad truth, but arbitrators are baby splitters. If you bring 600 cases, you're going to win 300 of them. If you bring 2,000 cases, you're going to win 1,000 of them. I would rather that we won 1,000 cases than that we win 300 cases. And I talked before about the need to include in the collective bargaining agreement a letter carrier rights article that would seek to slow down abusive supervisors in their attacks on letter carriers.
All right. What does being a leader mean to you?
It means setting an example for people about how we ought to behave in our dealings with management, for example.
What good qualities do you look for in a leader?
A couple of weeks ago, Corey said that what he's looking for in officers to be on a slate is integrity and accomplishment. I guess what I look for is integrity, by which I mean honesty and intelligence. Management doesn't like people who are in the union. They think that union leaders are inferior to them. They condescend to us, and I never refrained from rubbing in management's face that I am smarter than they are and that I am better educated than they are. I correct their grammar at every opportunity.
All right. What are your top 3 items you think are needed currently for letter carriers?
More pay, substantially more pay. None of this 1.3% or 1.5% baloney, but actual pay raises that can be seen and can be enjoyed. A working grievance procedure, and honest elections. I think are the 3 big things. The only thing that scares the incumbent officers is the possibility that they will lose an election to an outside challenger. And right now, I mean, for the last 45 years or so since Sombrotto won, there have not been credible challengers from the outside to motivate incumbent officers to do their best for letter carriers.
What would your first 3 executive orders be for the union direction?
I mean, the very first thing would be to mount a legal challenge to the continuing existence and use of the CCA classification. I mean, on the first day, I would have lawyers in court asking for a preliminary injunction against the Postal Service for requiring them to convert all CCAs to career and to stop hiring people as CCAs. The second thing is I would start the process of getting more arbitrators in the panels. Either I would call over to management, or somebody would call over to management and do as I did when I showed up at NALC headquarters the first time, and say we need to double the number of arbitrators on the panel, maybe triple the number of arbitrators on the panel. And the third thing would be to get to beef up the research capability at NALC headquarters, and get them working on building a computer model of the Postal Service's finances, so that we can find out what's really going on over there, and what effect our proposals would have.
All right. Do you think there should be an Article 15.6 contract compliance chapter? Why or why not?
Well, I guess I'd like to know more about what contract compliance chapter would do. I think that between using the grievance arbitration procedure with arbitration almost instantly available after Step B, and using the NLRB in court for filing bad faith bargaining claims against the Postal Service, that we have adequate remedies. But I'd be interested in knowing what anybody thinks could be put into the contract that would help.
Who have you been mentoring since the last election, and how has their development progressed as union activists, including within their own branches?
Well, I've certainly had intense relationships with all of the people who have been on the clean sweep slates in the elections in 2014, 2018, 2022. Some of them are amazing talents. Linda Mann, who was the clean sweep candidate for director of retirees, did what I thought I was going to do when I started with the Postal Service in 1975. She actually went to law school while she was working as a letter carrier, and graduated from law school and was admitted to the bar. Our candidate in 2022 for Secretary Treasurer, C Sharp, was the youngest ever graduate from NYU, and successfully by himself took a case to the United States Supreme Court. And did I mention that he was the youngest ever graduate from NYU?
Yeah.
Amazing guy.
How do you feel about the current administration's legislative initiatives, specifically the one involving former non-career employees being able to add non-career time towards their retirement?
Well, I am all in favor, completely in favor of CCAs and TEs being able to buy back their retirement credit. There is pending legislation to that effect, and in my opinion, NALC is not pushing that legislation because NALC, it would be an NALC fix it would be a legislative fix to a problem that NALC helped create in 2013 when it proposed creating the CCA classification. I think that Renfro superficially supports it, but I don't think that they're putting any real muscle behind it.
Do you hold an elected position in your local NALC branch? Do you attend your local NALC branch union meetings?
I don't hold a position. I considered running for president of the branch some time ago, more than 10 years ago, but decided against it at the last minute. I sometimes attend branch meetings. They're available on Zoom now, remotely. I live about 35 miles away from where the branch meetings are held.
Would you be willing to sit down with Postmaster General DeJoy and have him commit to holding all EAS employees to the same standards they demand of us, i.e., following postal rules and regulations, to include abiding by the contract and all agreements made between the NALC and USPS, and hold those EAS employees accountable through progressive discipline up to and including removal from the Postal Service?
Yes.
All right. I heard talk about them eliminating Article 271 from the M39 manual. What is your plan to replace this process if it does come to fruition?
I haven't heard that. I don't see any reason for Part 271 to be changed. I would oppose changes being made to it.
The length of time, number of days we work on an expired contract has been increasing for the last 4 consecutive contracts. We're at 1 year now. How will you speed up contract negotiations?
Well, when I was the assistant to the president for arbitration, we moved a contract from the contract expiration date, which was July 21st, to arbitrated contract on December 24th, or five months and 3 days. There's no reason for it to take longer than that, and it could conceivably take a little shorter than that. The reason that it takes a long time now is the national officers have learned that if they allow back pay to build up to a sizable amount, that people will vote to ratify a contract, no matter how bad it is, simply because they want the back pay. And I think that's really a bad practice, one that should not be encouraged.
All right. Do you believe the integrity of the office of president is more important than the person holding the office? If so, will you commit to resigning if your integrity comes into question during your term?
Yes.
All right. Now we got a lot of redundant questions here, so I'm skipping through. I've answered all these. Here's one that you talk about the DRP. You have previously stated you would eliminate the dispute resolution process and return to the old process. What experience prompted you to believe eliminating the DRP was necessary?
I don't like the DRT decisions that I see. My experience at the third step of the grievance procedure was when the procedure was adversarial, like the second and first steps, and when I was in a position, when I took a denial at step 3, to know that I was the person who was going to be arbitrating the case when it came up for arbitration. And I think that there is a real benefit to NALC for representatives to be able to handle grievances that way, to handle both the third step and to handle the arbitration of the same grievance as the next thing that happens.
What member of the current executive council, including national business agents, would have your support if they ran for re-election?
Well, I think I'm definitely not Renfro or Barner. And the people who have stuck out have been James Henry, Mr. Jackson, Nicole Ryan, Corey Walton.
I like that one. Would you support a constitutional amendment establishing term limits for national officers?
Yeah, I would. I don't think that's the real problem, however. I think the real problem is that we've been electing officers who are not committed to all out zealous representation of the membership. I think in the case of Renfro and Barner, I think we've elected people who are much more interested in pleasing management than they are in doing what's right for letter carriers. And I don't think that term limits would have taken care of that problem.
I like this one. It is often remarked that each region adjudicates grievances differently depending on who is national business agent. What specific actions would you take to ensure national business agents are enforcing our contract uniformly?
Well, that's a tough one because the regions do a lot of things at arbitration and at step B, and it's hard to keep track of them. We don't presently have any mechanism for tracking the region's performances in those areas. I think that by having executive council meetings periodically, as they do, and getting together and talking about how grievances are being handled and what the records are, that would have a salutary effect on the operation of the grievance procedure in the various regions.
Our union is currently being operated at a deficit. What specific actions would you take to ensure the NALC has a balanced budget?
Yeah, I'm not sure that NALC is operating at a deficit. I think, however, there are many places that NALC expenses can be cut. I think that the president's salary of $300,000 a year is obscene. And if elected president, I would take from NALC the salary of a letter carrier, and I would donate the balance of the $300,000 to NALC's PAC, but I think that that NALC's officer salaries are higher than the salaries of other postal union officers, and I think that NALC's officer salary should be reduced. I think that the under the table payments that are continuing to be made to the resident national officers and in some cases to the business agents should be cut. I think that the in-town expenses should be eliminated. I think that the Social Security reimbursement should be eliminated, and the convention per diem should be eliminated. When I was working in the Minneapolis region, every region had at least one full-time RAA. Now all of the regions have at least two full-time RAAs and in some cases three RAAs. A lot of what RAAs do has been taken away since I worked in the regional office. They, for the most part, are not arbitrating cases anymore, and they're not discussing grievances anymore. So far as I know, they're sitting around playing cards or talking with their friends on the telephone. I think there's cost savings that are available there. I think that a hard look needs to be taken at everything NALC does, looking for waste. When I was working at headquarters, there were I think 4 staff members. I was one. Bert Doyle in compensation was another. George Gould and a guy named Fred were in legislation, and that was it. And there are about 20 headquarters staff members now, and I can't imagine what they do or where their desks are. There wasn't very much space at headquarters.
Well, will you understand that the NALC belongs to every union dues paying members and that you were voted in to protect us at all costs?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
All right. I've learned more from this podcast than I have in 8 years of regional training. What's your plan to get more training to reps at ground level?
Well, as I said earlier, I think there should be intensive training about enforcing the contract at the regional and the branch level, and that at the regional level, NALC should be paying people for the lost time they suffer to attend, and encourage as many people as possible to come to the meetings.
All right. This is going to be my last one because we're getting right on it. But it's got several. You've answered about non-compliance. There's that. This is different. Can we give arbitrators a USPS checkbook to sign off on all payment awards immediately?
Probably not. But the best arbitrators, when they order a payment, give a schedule by which time the payment should be made.
What is your plan to eradicate the cronyism at national? What checks and balances will you put in place to prevent it from happening again?
Well, I'm not sure what cronyism there is. Jim Yates, his father was a business agent in Region 15, NALC is not a meritocracy. The best people don't get the jobs. NALC is an oligarchy. There's a small group of people from which national officers are promoted. As I've said, I want NALC to be more democratic. I want elections to be more competitive. I want decisions by the membership to be made based on the merits of the candidates rather than on their personalities or rumors that have been spread about them.
All right, he's going on down the line. What is your plan to eradicate cronyism at a regional level? What checks and what checks and balances will you put in place to prevent it from happening again?
Well, I mean, the regional level is more competitive democratically than the national office is. Business agents actually get beaten in elections from time to time, and it doesn't happen all the time, but at least there is the possibility there. We have to find ways for the membership to become educated about the qualifications and the performance of the people who work at the regional level, so that they make sound decisions about which candidates to elect and which to reject.
All right, we're still going on down. What is your plan to eradicate cronyism at a local level?
Yeah.
What checks and balances will you put in place to prevent it from happening again?
Yeah, the local level is the one place at the in the NALC where there truly is democracy. Uh, People, officers at the local level get knocked off in elections all the time. The terms are shorter than the terms for national office, and people have a better idea what the people who are in office are actually doing, and what they accomplish. I don't think that we have a huge problem with cronyism at the branch level.
All right. Now, if you don't understand this one, let me know and I'll explain it to you if you've not heard of the pound of flesh comment. But what are your thoughts on the hip grievances? What should a remedy be? How do you feel about Renfro's pound of flesh replies?
Yeah, I don't know what Ron Renfro's pound of flesh replies are. I understand the hip issue to involve supervisors falsifying postal service records, and I think that supervisors who falsify should be fired.
Yeah. All right. Now, Renfro's pound of flesh, when I came out pretty strongly about the death of our brother, Mr. Gates. And I said that we need to force all of these to arbitration and put a large sum of money, making sure that arbitrators see these cases. And we were going off as a craft. And unfortunately, Mr. Renfro chose to sit this one out. And then when somebody asked him about, the passion that was being shown by city carriers, he said that those city carriers are just looking for a pound of flesh. And so, of course, I went off about that because that's our brother that died, Mr. Gates, and you're not going to tell me that I'm looking for a pound of flesh. So, what do you think about the president saying that since we were agitated about our brother dying in somebody's yard, we were just looking for a pound of flesh?
Well, I think it's the kind of stupid, insensitive thing that I've come to expect from Brian Renfro.
What do you think about the memos, the 1 hour office time? Is this a grievance or simply an inconvenience, as Mr. Renfro says?
Yeah, I think that it's a grievance. I think that we should fight it wherever it comes up.
What would you say to members? This is all still the same person, but you only got one two more, and then we'll call it a night. What would you say to members, CCAs, PTS, and FTRs who feel like they are not getting a fair shake? Maybe their union is in bed with management or simply ignorant. What can they do to make their voices heard before waiting on the next election?
Well, I mean, waiting on the next election is the primary way we have of changing the course of the union. I wish that weren't the case. I wish that we had elections more often than every 4 years. I've said what I think that we need to do about CCAs particularly. I think that we should be in court right away, trying to get the CCA classification outlawed and all CCAs converted to career.
All right, last one. In support of full transparency, how would you feel about changing the process for leaving the union? If we can sign up at any time, why do we have to wait to a certain time period and send two certified letters? Please give members a direct route to pull their dues should they feel misrepresentation.
Yeah, I don't favor making it easier to get out of the union. The union is dysfunctional and corrupt, but it can be fixed. The only people who can fix it, however, are members. And if people are unsatisfied, they need to organize as they periodically are doing, on a variety of issues, and put pressure on officers to do better, and to get rid of bad officers who can't do better.
Well, Mr. Noble, that's going to be it because you're right on the 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock your time. That's 3 hours of it. So I've got you're about halfway done if you want to come back on another episode and keep this going.
Yeah, I would very much like to come back and answer some more questions.
All right.
I would also like to thank you for going above and beyond and doing this on a day when you worked for a full day, and in addition to doing this. And thank you very much for doing that.
No problem whatsoever, my brother. We'll get off of here so you can take care of your business, but you and I will get in touch and then we'll plan on another day to finish this up, part two. How's that sound?
Good.
All right, Mr. Noble, you have a good night, and I sure appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, take care now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.